Well, my name is Brad. I have a business here in North Texas, and I've been an Alibi dealer and an integrator, offering everything from copper and fiber infrastructure, rack room design build, CCTV and access control, audio, video, and digital signage services. Surveillance is about 60% of our business. We've been offering it starting with the old analog systems, working our way up to the network-based systems and IP cameras, and most recently introducing the cloud systems to our offerings. Well, actually, we started researching into cloud to help avoid some of the annoyances we're finding with the traditional systems. It did really cut down on our truck rolls for one of our franchise customers to be able to make edits and changes, especially when ISP starts making changes or configuration changes. We do not have to send somebody out to physically touch that NVR. I have a franchise customer that does have a constant movement of who needs access to view, who needs access to pull recordings. So again, that could be something that's done very easily anywhere in the world that I have internet access, or the customer themselves can use it. I do have some customers that want to be able to add different users for short periods of time. I have basically a pet kennel that they want to be able to give the pet owners from time to time access to the kennel that their animal is in, and then when that animal is gone, then that one comes out. And that's something that the end user can do very easily through the system. Obviously, some of the pain points that we deal with and the customers deal with is, again, going back to the hardware. Hardware failure on site, much of that is hard drive. That goes away. As an integrator, we get called a lot, or we're expected to take care of areas such as ISP changes or configurations. A lot of times my customers may not call me and they change their ISP. Traditional systems, I'm forwarding ports, or when a router goes out, and this is very common, a router goes out, it gets changed out, and all those settings that were in that previous router now goes out into the trash. And the next thing my customer knows is nothing's working. So their perception is all my stuff's broke. So from an integrator standpoint, I don't even care. They can change the router out 10 times in a day. As long as these cloud cameras see that internet, they are working. Traditional systems, you would shut down at that point. So I've got industries, retail, I've got salon industries that this is great to watch their halls. We're actually putting cameras with audio into some of these locations so the remote companies can hear if their music is playing. So they're doing more than just surveillance. They're listening. I have a kennel that utilizes it to allow end users to log in. So this would apply to daycare centers, being able to very quickly give new parents, which is a constant turnover, access to certain cameras. And it wouldn't be the entire camera on the system. Typically with a traditional system, I get access to the traditional system. I'm in there. I'm seeing everything that's there. With the cloud cameras, I can just give you camera number 1 and 5. So that's great. I have a ATV dealership. Obviously with this past pandemic, a lot of people were out and about socially distancing. Some of them were actually thieving at night. And this particular customer is able to use their cloud cameras and monitor and catch some of these crimes in the process. Actually, before the thieves even knew what was going on, they had the law down there picking them up and arresting them on camera. So that was great for that particular customer. And we've deployed cloud cameras at all of their sites as that was going through. So any industry, personally, I don't have a customer that I could pick out and say could not benefit from a cloud system. We just have to look and make sure that it does make sense, but very seldom do I ever find a location that when I'm comparing the traditional to the cloud, that the amount of pros or cons are going to leave the cloud out. That's not the case. So it's very little would it ever not apply. So. Well, that was definitely a concern I had at the very beginning before we started installing cloud ourselves as a dealer. I'll be honest, it's not any harder. It's actually easier. We're utilizing a lot of the same hardware. I used to install 2014 VRs. We're still installing 2014 VRs, cloud enabled. So for my technicians, I want them to be very well trained on what we're installing. We don't like changing models and makes and then drastic changes for the technician's sake. Nothing different. They're still pulling the same Cat5 cable or Cat6 cabling infrastructure that takes the same amount of time. They're taking the same bodies of cameras that they're used to installing and putting them up. The only difference is at the head end. So the guy working at the backside that used to spend a lot of time building out the NVR, doing all the configurations on the multiple you got pages and pages within the NVR to maneuver around to customize it for that solution. It actually got simpler because now, once all those cameras are plugged into a PoE switch, which is then in turn plugged into internet, you're done. Your laptop's plugged in, or you're using your iPhone or Android phone, and you're programming a camera at a time. When you get into the camera menu, you're literally 5 or 6 pages. So the amount of programming time on the head end has gone down. The front end, where the technicians are mounting the cameras, are just the same as they always have been in traditional. You're just dealing with a lot less hardware, a lot less configuration and programming. Yes, it's a little bit new, but after the first cloud install, you'll want to start installing cloud every time. Well, obviously, even though we have taken away some of the hardware that we were selling up front with the traditional system, it is paid back in dividends in the RMR. We also have cut down on truck rolls where we were running all over a metropolitan area, making changes, configuring users, things that for whatever reason maybe we were unable to do in our remote software that required a truck roll. So now those truck rolls are essentially gone. Perception is probably a large part of it. My customer's perception now is equipment gets put in, they have very little issues. If they do have an issue, they text or email me within minutes, it's fixed, the user's added, the user's taken away. Where before it would have been the next day because obviously we would have had to roll onto the site and work on it and then report back to the customer. So the customer perception is things happen very quickly. When they want something, it's done. It's out in the cloud, it got changed, and that keeps them coming back. As a small business, especially as we've just experienced a pandemic, we were very fortunate to have a large amount of RMR coming in, whereas 2 years before, that would not have been there. So that played a key role. And with the quality of everything that we're putting in, we're not having to go back and replace items. It's great. Well, my advice would be call your rep, order a camera right now, have it shipped to your location, and put it up in your office. You will see how quick and how easy that camera is to set up, to install, and to configure. Okay? Once you've done that one camera in your office, you're ready to tackle any install out there essentially. All you're now doing is looking at how many views you need, anything that any good dealer would be doing anyways. So get exposed to it. If you feel hesitant, don't. Get one in your hands and see what the difference is.